myself. So just
Thank
my
you.
2 cents. Thank you very much. What is the next step in the process now?
So the next step will be to compile the feedback that we hear tonight. Staff still needs to make a formal recommendation, but we likely won't do that until after we hear all of the comments from the communities. And then we go to the Planning Commission workshop, and that's the next opportunity that the public will have, and that will take place in late February. I believe the first meeting is on February 22nd, but don't hold me to that just yet.
That's correct, I think.
Okay.
So then how do we learn about the next meeting so we're sure we don't miss it? I almost missed tonight, so.
Got it. Let us know. What will be really helpful is let us know the best way that you receive communication.
Okay.
We typically send information out through the district newsletters. We also use social media, and then we have a mailing, but the mailing is more limited. So I'm not sure if you were included in the mailing. We do that to both individual properties near the site as well as civic associations in the area. Those are always updated, so that information, sometimes we get the mail back.
Okay.
But let us know what works best.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Mr. Dowsett, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Roger, my apologies. Can I speak?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm a strong opponent of developing this area at all. But if we have to, I want to know what they're going to do to A, replant trees, 2, minimize environmental damage in general, as well as preserve the Civil War area. And yeah, we already have enough problems with traffic here. I've reported to the police at least 24 times this year alone, or sorry, last year. That specifically people at the end there, Wharton Park Court. I've caught people doing almost 60 there, going down Wharton Lane. I live across the street. I also want to know what they're going to do when they're destroying the forest, probably using dynamite again, like they did along 66, where they shook our houses. And I'm in the process of trying to do a lawsuit on that because they did so much damage that they don't want to admit to our houses. And I mean, those are my questions. Sorry, I'm a strong opponent of development.
No. That's
Yeah, and I say I agree
know that we have other
100%,
people that feel
Alexander.
the same way.
Yep. We in Englewood Muse feel the same way. We need a sound wall. They screwed us. They've made a problem for us there too. I'm not going to dive in.
If I could just offer that a lot of your questions had to do with, preservation of Civil War artifacts and trees and how this would be developed. That's really would be much later in this process when we go through a rezoning. This is kind of the very beginning, taking a look at the comprehensive plan. But all of those issues would be addressed through an additional public process for the rezoning. So that would be much later, but I've written down your concerns.
My question is, what can we do to not develop this at all? Because I know I'm not the only one here who is really fed up with the construction on 66
Right.
that's blowing up my house.
Well, the property is privately owned and it is zoned R1, so it can be developed under that existing zoning. We're asking for an amendment to the comprehensive plan that would potentially allow some additional density, but it would also allow an opportunity to do things that you've talked about, like ensuring preservation of Civil War artifacts, tree preservation areas, those types of things.
So I'm talking 5 acres of woodland to the additional trees that they've cut down along Wharton Lane and haven't replaced, including all the ones behind us along 66, that all they did was come in with, I don't know what you call it, the big equipment to cut down trees and just slice them down and run away with them. And they haven't done anything to replace any of the ones on Coleman Court along 66 to prevent all the additional sound that we're experiencing. And not to mention, yeah, if you can't get out the back there, there's going to be people flying down Wharton again. I've really been hit twice with my dog. Or, I'm sorry, by cars that are too busy texting to look up. That's another concern. We don't, as a community, I can't speak for everyone else, but I don't want this property developed at all. And I'm a very strong opponent of putting any more houses in there.
I think the
So
comments that you're offering, I think the
What can
comments
we
that
do
you're
to block
offering
it
are,
completely?
well, as Lynn has mentioned, it is private property. So there is an option to, or the opportunity to redevelop it under its current comprehensive plan. What would be helpful is to think about some of the issues that we can offset in our review. So when staff is looking at the per se, is that you definitely want us to think about environmental and heritage resource protection if this moves forward, and also tree preservation as well as traffic. Or do I have that right? Are those the key concerns?
So where are they going to put 5 acres of woodland, since they're destroying all our other woodland? That's a lot of trees that we're going to lose, and we're going to
Yeah.
lose beautification of the area. But yeah, I mean, that's a major concern.
Okay. All right. We can note that.
All right.
Are there others? I think Mrs. Linda, you echoed some, if not most of those comments.
I do echo those comments, and
Okay.
I think it's Chesapeake watershed area too, if I'm not mistaken, is it not?
I haven't looked into it just yet. We have
Okay.
this is and just to reiterate, this is still very early, so we haven't even done a deep dive into our nominations just yet. But if that's something that you want us to look at, we will make a note as well. We will definitely check on the.
I think so, but honestly, I do agree with Alexander. I mean, if there's not
Okay.
much we can do about building out that area because it's privately owned, then as little as possible, which to me means still keeping it R1. So that's my 2 cents. I think you're putting an awful lot on us here between VDOT and what they did. Honestly, it is no small matter. And if this is a little bit of residue coming your way because of that, I'm sorry, but you know, we see. I told the police about this 4-way stop and how people just blow right through it. And he's right. I've not clocked anybody in terms of the speed that people are going, but when they come down Pickwick, which crosses over Wharton, they're at least going 40 or 50 miles an hour in a 25-mile speed zone. So we are really, this area, this neighborhood is really taking a lot of hits lately. And I think the less traffic you create with the build out here, the better.
Okay.
Michael, when there's time, I don't know if there is time, but we have some questions in the chat. Let me know when you're ready for them.
Yes, I'm ready. Go right ahead.
What is being proposed for the open space? Any proffers being offered? So proffers again are a later stage, but I don't know if you wanted to add anything more about open space you would consider for this concept.
Well, certainly that's something that we will take a look at and be very sensitive to should we go through a rezoning process. And with that, yes, we would consider proffers, but again, that would be much later in the process.
And then another question, was the option of leaving this identified historical resource area as an undeveloped land parcel? I'm assuming that they're asking if that was considered. And Michael, I guess that's a.
Yeah, I think that was the question that Mr. Dowd had asked as well. I think
Okay. Got it.
we've spoken to it. So.
Great. Sorry, I'll read through the rest. I see there's a hand up.
And again, if we just for the sake of time, if we aren't able to answer your question immediately, still leave it in the chat. We'll have a transcript of all of the information. And then our contact information will be shared at the end of the presentation if you want to submit written comments to us afterwards. But thank you, Lynn, for answering those questions.
Yeah, and the last one is about whether, are there earthworks, railroads, or graves expected, and wouldn't this type of information be helpful in the question we're asking?
I can answer that. This is Dick Labby again.
That too would, yeah.
Yes.
Go right ahead, Dick.
Yeah. Very early on, the first thing we're going to do is an archaeological study. That's without it. That's the first step. We definitely have to do that. We'll do a thorough one, and You cannot move ahead on this property without doing that. And that's the first step we're going to be doing.
Awesome. Thank you. I was going to say the same thing. Perfect.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let me pull up my screen once more. We'll move on to the second nomination.
I did have my hand raised. Can I actually
I'm sorry.
make a comment?
I'm sorry. I can't see the, go right ahead, sir.
Okay, my name's Perry Rhodes. I'm on the board of board of directors for Walney Glen, which is 90 degrees away from the ones you've just been talking to the southwest of the property in question. And I will say, I was notified of this meeting 2 days ago, so we're coming in late. But I do echo everything that was said by Linda. I think you're going to find that our community, our main concerns are going to be the impacts of any construction traffic down Pickwick and Wharton, any blasting, just like Inglewood, we have damaged homes in our roads from the construction of 66. So that's going to be a real issue, how the construction is going to impact our neighborhood, as well as the traffic. And you said we'll get into it with the proffers and the buffers. I do have a question. I know that it's it is within the historical district and you have to do the archaeological studies. And I know that pretty much that at least one corner of the property is historically significant. You show, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but you show a possibility of 12 units on that property. Is that really realistic at this point, knowing that you're going to have to do some consideration for the historical elements, plus the neighboring property up at Wharton Place, almost identical in size, only has 9 properties?
We put together a concept plan that was just, how this could be developed as an R3. We haven't looked at those things yet, such as, the heritage resources, tree save area. We would certainly look at that if we go through a zoning process. So this was just to show how this could develop under an R3 zoning, like the properties on either side.
And finally, Michael mentioned the possibility of extending the road from your property down to Summit. Is that actually being considered, or is that kind of a pie in the sky type consideration?
I can
Honestly,
speak to
we
that.
have not considered that. I think maybe Michael, you had mentioned that, but we had not considered that.
Yeah, that language is a part of the existing comprehensive plan. And so the requirement in order to develop at this density, the 3 dwelling units an acre, is to leave that as a potential option. I don't know that FCDOT has any plans on the books for that, but the option, keeping the option available is something that we were thinking about in the consolidation with the adjacent Centerville Farms Land Unit F.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to bring that up. That was interesting. I had not heard of that consideration before, and I think that would help a lot of the traffic on Wharton and Pickwick, although I don't know would do much for Leland.
May I ask just one more process question? This is Linda, and I know you have to move on. But if this was denied once before, why is it up again? Why are you spending time entertaining the idea again if this was denied once before?
So I don't know that it was denied once before. Lynn, has this proposal?
I don't know.
My understanding is it has. I know somebody whose family was involved in, this process before, and they said it was denied before. So,
okay. I did not represent. I have not represented anyone else on this property. I don't know if it was denied before.
Okay. All right.
And likewise, we haven't heard that as well. But if that's something we can take a look at. Again, these are all ideas that have been submitted. So we're always going to be open to people submitting their ideas. We wouldn't have not allowed that to come forward. But the screening process is for that purpose, so that we
Okay.
can identify those concerns.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll keep
Thank
rolling
you.
just for the sake of time. Our next nomination is SU004. This is located at 14600 Willard Road. It's just to the northwest of the intersection of Willard Road and Lee Road. If you're familiar with the area, Willard Road connects to 28 just off screen here to the east. The property is about 6 acres in size. Cub Run does run along the northern portion of the property. It's currently planned for industrial flex uses up to a 0.3 FAR. That's similar to the uses that you see here on screen. The proposal is looking to add an office use, possibly a medical office use included, a gas station with associated commercial uses, as well as a drive-through restaurant, all at the same intensity, the 0.35 FAR for the new development. The change to the plan would be for the addition of office and commercial use to the site on top of the industrial flex uses. This is a concept that the nominators have shared. It gives you an idea of the extent of the environmental features on site, and it also conceptually lays out some of the uses that they have brought forth. Of particular interest, there is a proposed new traffic signal that's just west of the intersection with Lee and Willard Road that would allow or manage access to and from the site. So some of our considerations, this is in a suburban center. It's thought about as an employment center along arterial roads, so the general use types can conform. However, given the automobile-oriented nature of the uses that we're looking at, we anticipate some significant impacts to the network, not necessarily just with traffic or trip generation, but access to the site, and particularly the introduction of a new signal in close proximity to an existing one. I think that's going to require a signal justification report through VDOT, if I'm not mistaken. There are also the consideration of significant environmental features on the site and how some of the proposed uses, particularly a gas station, may work in that environment. That is something else that will require a higher level of review if this moves forward. I'll pause here and open the floor to Ms. Veronica Merrill. She is with DLA Piper, and she is representing the nominator for this proposal. Veronica, are you? Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen. I have a brief presentation here. I'm also joined by Doug Riley, who is, oh, there's my entire screen, who is with Thomas Somerville Companies, who is the owner and nominator for the site. All right, can you all see my PowerPoint presentation? Okay, awesome. So hi, everybody. My name is Veronica Merrill. I'm a land use planner with DLA Piper, and I'm here on behalf of Thomas Somerville Companies for the Site-Specific Plan Amendment nomination. Thank you so much, Michael, for the introduction. I'm really just here to provide some more context and flavor as to what we're asking for this site. So just by way of introduction, Thomas Somerville Companies is the owner and nominator for the site. They're a long-established business in Virginia and Maryland, and they actually commenced operations in the 1800s, which I think is really cool. They're a heating, plumbing, and air supply company with a long history of employing many Fairfax County families, which I'm very happy to report. So as Michael talked about, this is a context map. The site is located in a pretty commercially developed area. The adjacent uses include Long and Foster, the National Reconnaissance Office, SAIC, and Leidos, among other users. There's also a robust educational community in this area with the Criminal Justice Academy just directly across Lee Road and nearby Westfield High School. So I just want to note that these uses are on the same side of Route 28 as the nominated parcel. And there are a lot of people just working, living, and learning in this area. So here is a vicinity map that shows the site with our proposal overlaid on it. The site is currently vacant and it's ready for development. I want to note that the Ellipse at Albemarle is a new development that will be occupied soon, and it's going to have hundreds of families in this area. It's going to add a lot of people, which is going to put a serious strain on the limited neighborhood services and resources that are currently existing. So as we know, it's at the intersection. The nominated property is at the intersection of two really important roads in the county, and it's nearby Route 50 and Route 28. So current comprehensive plan recommendations for the site, as Michael said, it is an industrially planned site, but that's not really exactly what's actually been built in the area. So the maximum FAR is 0.35, which is a pretty low intensity. And I just really want to note that the current comprehensive plan designation for the suburban center, which the parcel is in, is planned for integrated, functional, mixed use, employment, residential, and office areas. So now for our proposal. So we're not proposing to change too much of the recommendation. Essentially, what we're trying to do is serve the community in the way that it needs to be served. So now that there's that residential development that's been approved in all of these different offices and employment centers that are existing in the vicinity of the property, we just aim to provide services to that community. So we're hoping to establish office uses, potentially an office use, a fueling station with associated commercial uses and service uses, and then potentially a drive-through or fast casual restaurant. And again, we're going to maintain that 0.35 FAR so as to not intensify the development and the parcel any further. So as you'll see here, we have a quote from the current comprehensive plan that I pulled out for the Dulles Suburban Center, and we do believe that this plan amendment does support the current planning goals for this area. We believe that this is the highest and best use for the parcel, and so I'm pretty excited to show you our concept plan. So as you can see here, we have a site that is respectful of the current floodplain that exists on the site. So we're aware of some of the environmental concerns, and those will be addressed in any subsequent zoning entitlement case that goes forward. But just for the purposes of this comprehensive plan amendment, we do just want to note a few things that are exciting. So the first is that this site is going to, hopefully when developed, provide tax revenue for the county in a way that doesn't actually burden a lot of the services. So there's no burden on the schools. There's not going to be a large burden on a lot of the fire and rescue and police services. So that's a huge plus. This small scale commercial retail site has long-term benefits. As you can see, there are access points, pedestrian access points that connect to the Criminal Justice Academy. So, potentially students who are attending there can come and grab a quick bite to eat, whereas they don't have any place to do that. That's walkable at this moment. And in the future, we're going to have the residences, the Ellipse at Albemarle is going to be established, and all of those people are going to need services that are not currently in existence at this point. Just to quickly go over the traffic concerns, we have engaged a traffic consultant to do some preliminary look at the site. And I do just want to say that after talking with them, they said that they feel comfortable after looking at recent counts to say that the impact that this development may have can be absorbed and mitigated. And so what they mean by that is that trips that could potentially happen for the current existing uses and future uses that will be established in this neighborhood can be captured by multimodal forms of transportation, such as biking and walking, rather than people just driving. I guess a different way to say that is, instead of a student at the Criminal Justice Academy having to drive to a different fast casual restaurant, they can simply walk across the street. So I'm actually joined by Doug Riley today, as I mentioned, and I think he may want to just quickly give a few words. That's the end of my presentation, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to ask Mr. Riley to just say a few words for us.
Thank you, Veronica. As she mentioned, I am the president of Thomas Somerville Company. Not the owner, not that fortunate, just the president. I just run the company. For those interested parties in the community to be aware of our commitment to establishing these services that were really to enhance the neighborhood's quality of life and experience. We've owned the property since 1976. It's kind of crazy we haven't done anything with that since then. We did, though, at the parcel to the left of the picture you saw of the plan. That's one of our branch locations. So we did build a branch in 1992 to service the community as well. I'm a longtime employee of Somerville for 37 years. I started actually in Fairfax, Virginia, years ago. We are a longtime employer of many other families in the county. We do certainly believe that and hope the development of the vacant lot can bring much needed services and amenities to the area, especially with what's going on across the street. I think Ms. Merrill has covered our formal presentation very well, but on a personal note, I would really like to thank you for the opportunity and your consideration in this SSPA.
All right, thank you both. With that, I will open the floor once again for questions and comments. To reiterate, if you wouldn't mind just raising your hand, that way we can get in order and we'll give you an opportunity to speak. And thank you for those who are adding comments in the chat. We are seeing those. So we've identified some of our key considerations. Are there others that folks think that we should add? Other things that county staff should be looking at if this moves forward? Are you in agreement with the considerations that we've outlined?
Michael, as people think about what they're going to share, I'll just read a few of the comments.
Sure.
Some finding it interesting, sounds like a great addition to the community. Another person saying they share staff's concerns with the traffic light and environmental concerns, feeling there are many drive-through restaurants in the area and that a unique restaurant should be proposed to justify it. Don't need another McDonald's is the comment in the chat.
I can address that really quickly if that would be helpful. Yeah. So in terms of end users, this is again just a comprehensive plan amendment, so we're not committed to that. That would come in the time of a zoning entitlement case. More specifics on that, but yeah, I mean, when we discussed this with the traffic consultant, we talked about VDOT access spacing standards and the applicant is the nominator and future applicant for a zoning entitlement case would be subject to certain review and approval requirements regarding the signalized entrance and exit. So that's, I guess, a future consideration, but we are already looking into that.
Awesome, thank you for that. Give it just a few more seconds. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to raise your hand. And if not, if you think about something as we move through the evening, again, feel free to either put it in the chat, Clara or myself. We can follow up with you afterwards. For the sake of time and seeing no immediate hands, we'll keep moving right along. Let me share my screen once more.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Our third nomination for this evening is for SU 005. It is located in the Westfields community, or the Westfields Business Park area. It's located at the intersection of Stonecroft Boulevard and Conference Center Drive. The site is about 64 acres in total and is currently developed with a number of office uses. It is a secure site, so the access is limited. The current plan for the property is for office use at about 0.5 FAR, which you can see here today, and I think they're very close to that intensity today. What the nominator has proposed is a relatively slight increase in the maximum FAR up to a 0.69 to allow for an additional office building and parking structure in this open space that you see here, and we'll show you a picture of that in just one moment. So we can show it to you now. I think that's all we need to talk about. On the concept drawing that you can see here, it shows the addition of one new building in the Park Center development, as well as a parking deck, which encompasses an existing parking deck here to the north. And I believe this area here is Greenfield to the south. Let me just check. Yeah. So the parking deck would be located in this green area and across this existing parking level, and the new structure would be here where the 64 right is. So some of our initial considerations, with the additional office use, we do expect daily trips associated with the new development to increase. And at a minimum, FCDOT has recommended that at least an operational analysis may be warranted to get a better sense of how the new movements are impacting the surrounding road network. In the previous development of the site, I'll note that there were multiple cemeteries that were identified. And so our Heritage Resources Group has flagged that this will likely need an archaeological survey, also for any of the undisturbed areas on the site if they are to redevelop in the future. And with that, that's just a couple of staff's high-level preliminary considerations to start with. I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Scott Adams, who is representing the nominator.
All right, thank you, Michael, and good evening to everyone. I'm going to see if I can share, but for some reason it is not, doesn't look like it's letting me share. I don't know, I think Lori Greenleaf from my office is on, and she may be able to share this if I'm not able to. But I guess just for the sake of time, joined tonight by David Norfolk from Corporate Office Properties Trust. Again, I'm Scott Adams. I'm a land use attorney with McGuire Woods. And we're excited to be here tonight to talk about what we think is a pretty important opportunity for an existing employer within Westfields to reinvest and expand its office footprint. The current user of the site is a federal agency that operates a secure campus on the property. In some of the space planning discussions we've been having with them, they've expressed a desire to expand their footprint within the Westfields secure campus, which we think from a planning economic development standpoint is a really good thing for this area. But it does require, just based on their space needs, a slight increase in the FAR for the site. So looking at an increase from a 0.5 FAR to a 0.69 FAR. We think that change is warranted and again will be a good thing for the Westfields community by keeping an existing user in Fairfax County and in Westfields and adding jobs to the area, solidifying the office market, but also expanding in a way that's really compatible with the surrounding area. And it really creates a great project that's additive to this part of the county. So Michael showed the existing aerial of the site. I will note that the site is already planned for a full build out under the existing comprehensive plan recommendations and zoning approval for the site. So the sort of those green areas that are on the property have sort of already been prepared for future development. What we're looking to do is increase the FAR, which will allow us to change the configuration and the massing of the proposed buildings, also add some structured parking to the site, but doing so all in the interior and within the existing planned development envelope, so not expanding out where development's already planned to occur on the property. I think importantly also maintaining the existing access points onto Conference Center Drive and Stonecroft Drive, which are the two roads that encircle the property. We anticipate retaining all the other recommendations in the comprehensive plan. And again, the only ask is an increase in density of 0.19 FAR. From a planning standpoint, we think the proposal is really in line with the Westfield's history as a preeminent office market, but also with the overall planning guidance for the Dulles Suburban Center and for this property and for Westfield's in particular. And we also think it dovetails nicely with some of the approved plans to diversify the uses within Westfields. Sites near the property are planned for or developed with mixed use residential and retail. And we really think the increased jobs on this site and new people coming to the site as employees really creates a good amount of synergy with some of those mixed use developments that are occurring around us, providing customers for the retail out there and residents for the nearby homes. We also think that the property, this proposal really fits the guidance from a compatibility standpoint and a quality of development standpoint. The site's already developed for office. It already has a special exception on the property that allows for development up to 120 feet in height. And it is compatible with the surrounding uses, which are all office uses in the immediate adjacent area to the property. From a design standpoint, this site, like the properties around it, is subject to the Westfield's design guidelines, which will continue to ensure that you're going to get high quality architecture and landscaping and site design for the project, and requires Architectural Review Board review from the Westfield's Business Owners Association. In addition, as I mentioned, the development is really focused on the interior of the site, which means that we'll be able to maintain the existing multi-use path sidewalks that are currently all the way around the property. We'll be able to maintain the existing landscaping and some of the nice landscape features, the stone wall on Stonecroft, but also adding internal pedestrian connections to really make for a well-designed and cohesive site. From an economic development standpoint, we think the project really furthers a lot of the comprehensive plan's goals, but also some of the other county policies that exist related to economic development, including the county's economic success plan, the strategic plan, and the One Fairfax policy. I think we believe this is a fairly straightforward request and something that, again, is going to be a really successful project in Westfields and very additive to the area. And one that solidifies the office market out there and really creates a high quality, well-designed, well-integrated campus. And I think the other thing sort of to maybe close on with this project is that it really is a real project. It's a owner who is a long-term owner of the property. It's a user who is already there looking to expand. It's something that we're sort of ready to execute on, and again feel like really will be additive and a benefit to this area of the county. So I will stop there, and I think our team is happy to answer any questions.
Awesome, thank you for that, Scott. And really quickly to Lori Greenleaf, I pressed some buttons. Maybe you have access to it now, but if it gives you the option to share anything and you'd like to. Feel free.
Yeah, I'm still not able to.
Still not able to. It said, well, we won't hark on it tonight. What I'll do is open the floor for questions. And if you want to, Scott or Lori, feel free to send me an email and I can share it from my screen as well if there's something pertinent in there that you'd like to share. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. J, go right ahead, sir.
Thanks, Michael. This is a question revolving around transportation and traffic. The intersection of Stone Road and Stonecroft has come up a number of times because of traffic. It's the exit off of 28 into that industrial area. Recognizing the fact that that building is not yet at full capacity, I was just wondering, what is the current occupancy rate and how much of an increase is that going to cause by the new construction?
So I may let, and you're asking about the occupancy rate in the current buildings on this site?
Correct, because it's still not under full occupancy or full construction, I don't think. At least it wasn't a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and David, I don't know if you have current occupancy numbers.
No, and we're not at liberty to, they actually don't tell us the full occupancy number, given the nature of the federal client that's in that space. I can tell you that it's parked at 3.9 per 1,000 square foot, but we don't know the actual occupants that go in there.
Well, I'm not concerned about the occupants themselves. I'm just worried about the amount of traffic and congestion that's going to be caused at that intersection and traffic coming in and out of there, because typically it is, you know, again, with people going back to work, I think there's going to be, again, more pressure put on that intersection.
I could speak to that briefly. What I'll say is that even for the portions of the property that may not be operating at full capacity now, as part of our comprehensive plan analysis, we assume max build out. So when we go through a plan amendment process, we will assume that the existing uses, the 0.5 that are there today, capacity when transportation does their operational analysis, and then add what's being proposed on top of that. So our purview is looking at the maximum impact. And of course, if the buildings don't fill out, then the impact should be less than what we've anticipated. But it will be a part of staff's consideration.
All right, thanks, Mike. I just wanted to be sure that somebody was at least looking at that.
Yeah, and I'll say from our perspective, you know, we're aware of the traffic issues that are out there. You know, COPT owns that site now, and it's something that we're committed as this moves forward to making sure, you know, we're doing the appropriate traffic analysis and including any mitigation that's needed for the surrounding intersections.
Michael, a related question about traffic at Westfields Boulevard near Wegmans, asking if there's a need for additional improvements there with additional office. And I think it's a related answer, but wanted to point out that question in the chat.
Absolutely, thank you. I thought I had seen another, I may have missed it and I apologize, I'm jumping between screens. No, I think that's it. Okay, all right, well, Scott and Lori as well, thank you very much for your time. And apologies, Lori, for not working things out here, getting you access. We'll get it right the next time. We'll continue moving through the presentation if there are no questions. Let me jump back to my screen.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our fourth nomination this evening is SU 007-007. It is located close to the intersection of Stringfellow and Clifton Road with its intersection at Route 29. If you've driven down Route 29 or down the road, it's immediately adjacent to the 7-Eleven that's there on the corner. The property is about 1 acre in size, currently undeveloped and wooded as well. It is planned for residential use up to 2 to 3 dwelling units per acre. And the proposal that we've received as part of this process is recommending 8 to 12 dwelling units an acre. I believe it's townhomes. And we'll allow the nominator to speak to that here momentarily. The only access point at this today is along Route 29 to the north. It's currently only a right in and right out for both of the parcels, both of the 7-Eleven, and if anything develops here, and that likely will continue in the future. This is just a brief drawing. We just asked for high-level concepts, but this just gives you a sense of how the site may be laid out. This could change, but the access you can see here, Route 29 to the left of the screen, with a potential service road. And then I believe up to 11 single-family attached homes here, as well as some additional parking. A couple of our key considerations, as I mentioned, site access. It is very close to an existing intersection. There's a challenge getting in and out of properties around this intersection today, just given the median and the volume of traffic. And I believe the future plan or the future roadway improvements planned for that area will continue to maintain the median so that you will not have the out of the site. And I think there are additional improvements planned for that intersection as well, which may impact this property or the 7-Eleven property in the future. Also, given just the smaller size of the site, we think open space may be a little bit of a challenge to provide given the amount of density that's being proposed. There will be a requirement to provide some level of amenity space or open space to the residents there, and the constrained site may make that more difficult. So those are just a couple of high-level considerations. What I want to do now is turn it over to Mr. Ben Wales, who is the nominator representing this proposal. Mr. Wales.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Could you go back to the aerial?
Let me share my screen once more. Absolutely.
Please. Great, thanks. So good evening, my name is Ben Wales. I'm a land use planner with the law firm Cooley, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the property owners. As Michael has mentioned, the SSPA nomination recommends that the comprehensive plan is amended to identify this property for development with townhomes at a density between 8 and 12 dwelling units per acre. In considering this townhome concept, it's important to note that the comprehensive plan does recommend a residential use of this site today. So we're not looking to change this general use. However, we are proposing a different type of unit, which would be consistent with the townhome neighborhood that we see on the left-hand side of the site here to the south, and the townhome neighborhood on the north side of Route 29. Of note, the property is currently zoned for commercial activities. It is planned for residential, but it's zoned C8 for commercial activities and has a current site plan for a retail development. However, we, like the comprehensive plan, believe that its development with residential would be more appropriate and would support the comprehensive plan recommendation of not expanding or intensifying spot commercial centers along Route 29. The initial concept that we submitted and that Michael just showed on the screen does show 11 homes, 11 townhomes. They would be accessed from a new service drive, which is to be constructed along the south side of Route 29. Here it is on the left-hand side of this screen as part of VDOT's ongoing improvement project. So access won't be created through an existing community. We know that staff has undertaken an initial review of the SSPA submission and has noted, as we just heard, that access will need to be considered. However, this is the access that VDOT is constructing to this site. It would be the same access whether it's developed with a residential use or under its current retail site plan. Open space has also been mentioned and as needing to be considered, and we're fully aware of that, and the zoning ordinance standards. I also wanted to acknowledge the current comprehensive plan recommendation of 2 to 3 dwelling units per acre for this site. For several reasons, we believe that this type of development is no longer applicable. Firstly, the current recommendation is no longer consistent with the adjacent retail use, the 7-Eleven that was mentioned, the neighboring townhomes to the south, or the neighboring townhomes to the north on the north side of Route 29. Secondly, the comprehensive plan recommendation today doesn't factor in the land development and infrastructure costs associated with the development of this 1 acre site, which would clearly yield only 2 to 3 homes. Thirdly, on a site such as this, where it is appropriate, we believe the county needs to move away from the historic concepts of large homes on large lots and, in conformance with the plan recommendations, toward more housing attainability and more efficient use of land. The SSPA proposal would allow that. When considering the current comprehensive plan recommendation, it's also important to consider the widening project of Route 29, which I believe is to start construction this spring, and the accessing of the property by the service drive, which it will share with the CVS, sorry, with the 7-Eleven to the east. From a market perspective, this access is no longer consistent with a single-family detached home that's currently recommended. In summary, we believe that a development of townhomes on this site could provide a consistent type and pattern of development, would be more appropriate than the current comprehensive plan recommendations for the site, and will provide attainable housing with access to a transportation network, the metro, and employment opportunities. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wells. We appreciate that, sir. Once again, I am happy to open the floor to anyone. If you have comments or questions, feel free to raise your hand or leave a comment in the chat.
Michael, I will say in the chat, we had a comment about expressing concerns over the access being on Route 29, suggesting that access to Clifton would be better, and also saying that 8 to 12 townhomes, that density too crowded for the area, and also expressing concern over the loss of trees.
Okay.
Another comment had to do with grade separated interchange that might be planned. 29 in Stringfellow, asking if that had been engineered and whether any remnant, should the remnant of the 7-Eleven site after the interchange be consolidated with this property. So I don't think we know that, but I don't know if the nominator has any insight about that.
I do not know. We've been looking at VDOT's most recent plans for this, for the Route 29 improvement. They don't show an interchange.
Okay. All right. So what I've heard, and similar to some of the other comments that were mentioned, access, tree preservation. There was a comment related to the number of units, density that might pose a concern. Are there any others, Clara, that I'm blanking on?
Right, yes. A comment that there's a comp plan recommendation for Route 29 here for widening to a 6-lane median divided cross section. And then a question about the comprehensive plan. Does every developable acre of land need to be developed? So I think that's in the category of, is it an option not to develop? And the question we're asking is about amending the comprehensive plan. Every property has the ability to develop in some form. And then when we study a plan amendment, the question is, can we do better? Is there a better alternative to what the current possible future is for that property? Would be how I might answer that.
Thank you. And Mr. J, you had your hand raised again, sir. Go right ahead.
Yeah, and I'll just go back to Carla's comment. We recognize the fact that all available property in Fairfax County and Sully District can be developed. That doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be developed. I've lived here for 25 years now, and I've seen so many acres of prime real estate get torn up and houses built on top of that, or torn down just to put in a property or to put in some sort of structure. Going from 2 to 3 to 11 to 12 seems to be a bit abusive. When I ask my question, I'm not talking about tree save area. I'm talking about let's just save acres of trees. We need acres of trees. We don't need to be covering everything with concrete and asphalt and buildings. My guess is that these properties will still be priced at the $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a piece. That does not make them affordable in this area. Something affordable needs to be in the $300,000 to $400,000. Even that is out of reach by most people. But this whole idea that any piece of available property should be or could be developed is crazy. We need to figure out ways to stop the development so that we can at least have a reasonable quality of life here in Fairfax County.
Thank you, sir. Comments are duly noted. Are there others? All right, hearing none, I believe we are at our final nomination, so I'll go ahead and keep moving. Again, if a question pops into your head, feel free to leave it in chat, and we'll respond to it as soon as we can. Our last nomination for this evening is for SU 009. This is at 12306 Lee Jackson Highway, or Route 50. It's currently developed with I believe it's the Briar Oaks Automotive Center. It's immediately next to the Fair Oaks Fire and Police Station, if you are familiar with that. The site is currently planned for residential use at 2 to 3 dwelling units an acre, but it does have an option in the comprehensive plan that would allow it to modernize the existing uses, the existing commercial uses associated with the automotive repair and gas station at a 2.5 FAR. The proposal is for mixed use up to a 0.69 FAR, and that includes up to 100 multifamily residential units above approximately 14,500 square feet of ground floor retail. And again, just to orient yourself, this is at the intersection of Fair Ridge Drive, and Route 50 within the Fairfax Center area. This is a picture of the concept that's been shared. There is a single structure here, approximately 6 stories, again with residential above ground floor retail, and some parking around the site. And what I believe to be a parking structure appears to be a ramp here at the rear of the property. To your right, again, just to get your bearings, this is the Fair Oaks Fire and Police Station. So a few of staff's concerns here is also something that we'll need to think about given the site's location and its particularly its location to the intersection with Fair Ridge Drive. There is the potential to impact existing vehicular movements in the area, and access to the site would be challenged. And I believe access to the site, I'm going to go back just for a second so you all can see. There isn't a service road. The service road stops. The fire and police would like to keep this area clear, so access would be directly from Lee Jackson Memorial Highway, and then back out onto another service road that's in front of the property right at the intersection. Given the size of the property as well, the density and the intensity that's being proposed will make meeting those open space and even parking requirements somewhat of a challenge. That's something that we'll have to think about, the way the intensity is situated on the site and if there's opportunities to provide the necessary amenities. And then the roadway noise, the proximity to Route 50, which is a major arterial in the county, is something that we also need to think about if this were to move forward onto our work program. Those, again, are just a few of staff's high-level considerations, and we're interested in knowing if you think there should be others. What I'll do is turn it over to our last presenter of the night, Mr. Andrew Gregg. Sir, thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Andrew Gregg with Bean Kinney Corman here on behalf of Burke Petroleum Realty. Thank you to staff and to the community for making it all the way to the end of this. I appreciate that. And I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Should I attempt, Michael?
I'd say give it the old college try.
Give it a
We'll see
try.
what we can do.
Okay.
And I think there are a couple, yep, you did it. Never mind.
Okay. I feel lucky. All right. Okay. I don't want to, go over anything that Michael has already gone over, considering, timing and everything. But, the station here has been here since 1961. During the early 2000s, the surrounding area was redeveloped with office, hotel. There are other residential uses that I think you could see from the aerial that Michael showed, including, I believe, townhouses or single-family houses that have recently been added. And I think, the owners are looking at the potential to add more flexibility to the comprehensive plan language, which is pretty specific in terms of, modernization and reconstruction of the service station. And I think that, as we move forward into the future, that there are other uses and potential for the site that could be explored. And one of the uses that we're exploring is this mid-rise 6-story residential with retail on the ground floor. We've heard, staff's initial comments concerning access, parking, and open space. These are things that we plan to address in the future as the conversation continues. I would say that something that is worth looking into potentially with staff and with adjacent property owners is the hotel directly behind the site is currently parked. I think it's 256 parking spaces for 150, door hotel. So, it's moving forward, we would, look into the possibility of some sort of shared parking scenario or something to potentially mitigate impacts. Just because I was looking at satellite image and I thought, it might be interesting to take a look at this. Here's an aerial from 1961 that you are correct. That is the station right there. Looks like it was one of the if not the first development to go in there. And as time has progressed and we've seen development grow up around it, we think that this site, has a lot of potential in a logical development pattern to have an increased density. It's close to the, Fairfax Center core area. There are other projects in the area with similar density, including the Overture at Fair Ridge, which is behind the hotel. That we think this fits in well to the community. It is not, butting up against single-family homes. It is, next to Lee Jackson, and so we will have to figure out, if this were to move forward and how we could, mitigate the impact from noise. But as far as, impacts to, the citizens, we think this is a pretty good site in terms of that. It's part of a FDP that included the hotel. And to move forward, we would probably need to amend that FDP to change what was planned for the station, which was to increase the station size and add a mini mart and car wash. Yeah, that is how we would move forward. And I'm happy to end it there and take any questions from the community that you guys might have. So I appreciate your time. And I'll stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thank you once again, Mr. Gregg, for your presentation. The floor is yours. I open it up to the community if you have any thoughts, comments, concerns. Mr. J.
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to step away for just a minute to get my battery charged up. I assume that this gas station at some step is going to be eliminated. Is that what you were saying? And potentially replaced with a office space and buildings?
This gas station could potentially be eliminated in the future. At this point, we're requesting an amendment to the comprehensive plan, which would include mixed-use residential, 6 stories, 100 units. But I think that the key takeaway from all of this is to just increase the flexibility that's concerned with this site. We think that the current language that's involved is fairly restrictive towards getting it to, perhaps its highest and best use in the future.
Well, the concern I'm expressing is one of an environmental concern. As with most gas stations, petroleum, oil, and lubricants having seeped into the ground, potentially into the groundwater, that at least be taken into consideration if, in fact, that the gas station is eventually replaced by any sort of buildings in the area.
Yeah, I'm not aware through our conversations with the owner as to whether there has been any identification of the site as one that's had spills or that has been identified as a brown site or anything like that. And obviously, if it's replaced, we would go through all the precautions that are required to remove the tanks and make sure that we don't have that seepage that you're worried about.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I see a Mr. Lewis Grimm. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I live in that general area. I live further to the north in the Franklin Farm community. I'm very familiar with this situation, this location. I have used that service station a number of times. I've also shopped at the Harris Teeter, that's part of that larger commercial development there. I think a major challenge is going to be getting any kind of a decent access system defined for the reuse of this parcel. Right now, the only way to get out of there legally is you go through the service station, come out the service road to the entrance that goes back to the Harris Teeter, go up and make a U-turn and come back. I mean, it's really an issue. You almost have to kind of totally reconfigure the access and circulation system for that entire area to really make it work. So that's point one. Point two, I would note that you're right. The station's been there for a long time, since the early 1960s. At that time, which is more than 50 years ago, almost 60 years ago now, the concepts that were being applied for major suburban arterial highways was to have service roads on both sides of them. Those were never created, though, throughout Fairfax County to any large degree or anywhere else. Those concepts have been basically discarded over the intervening decades. So I think it's a situation to say, look at what you've got, but it's going to be a major effort to get any kind of a decent, acceptable access that VDOT and Fairfax County would be willing to accept. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Grimm, thank you, sir. Appreciate the comments. Are there others? And Mr. Grimm and Mr. J, I see both of your hands still raised. I just want to make sure that you were still okay. Okay. Awesome. No worries. No worries. Didn't want to exclude you. Okay. Clara, anything in the chat related to this? I see Jeff has his. Jeff, you have your hand raised for this one?
Yes, I do. I realize that a gas station, and I've noticed it charges a premium because it's close to the interstate. You have to go about a quarter mile to a half mile further up to the Greenbrier Shopping Center to get your first gas station if this is eliminated. And I believe that people value, and I believe the gas station values it because it charges, as I said, a premium for getting gas at that site. It's location to 66, and I think it serves the general public to have a gas station within a short distance of the interstate. And eliminating it is a detriment to the, I guess, driving public. I should say the gas using driving public. Though I would assume that most gas stations in the future will become fuel stations and have a variety of fuels, whether it be electric, hydrogen, diesel, or gasoline to service the vehicles of the future. So I think that it serves a good use there. Thank you.
I'm still hoping for the flying cars. We'll see what happens.
Well, even a flying car will need fuel. And I remember VDOT saying with all these electric cars and the result of fusion versus fission and electricity being available everywhere, that just means more cars since it'll be free to drive. Thank you.
Mike, and there's a comment in the chat about reiterating the value of the current gas station and also the service station.
Right, which also provides a, also provides a service. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you. Any other questions? And please don't worry if you do. This is not the last time. We are always available. You can give myself a call or Claire a call or send us an email if you think about something after the meeting or something pops into your head. I don't want you to feel like this is the last moment. Let me share my screen really quickly, and then we'll transition over, and we'll have
Thank
Jeff.
You.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. Thank you for your time, sir. I appreciate that. So really quickly, if you need to, our contact information is on the screen. Key dates to remember, we plan to go over the next set of Sully items, I believe on Monday, January 30th. Same time, same setting, same format. If you come to that one, you'll have to listen to me spiel through the comprehensive plan information one more time, so I apologize in advance, but the meeting proceeding will be similar to tonight. And the first Planning Commission workshop, again, right now is scheduled for February 22nd. That may change. Just keep an eye on that webpage, on our webpage. All of the meeting or upcoming meeting information will be there. But we have a number of other community meetings that we need to get through between now and that date. So we're running into some deadlines. So with that, I want to personally thank everyone who spent their evening coming to listen to the proposals. I'd like to also thank the nominators for speaking to your proposals and providing your justification. If you all are interested in continuing with the SDCCA's meeting, that will take place on, I think through a separate platform, I believe WebEx. And Jeff, I don't know if you've had a chance, I can't see my screen, to put that link in the chat. If you're interested in that link in the chat, and I think you'll be good to go.
Okay. If I may speak, Michael?
Yeah, go right ahead, sir.
I wanted to point out that we're wondering whether or not the slideshow is available.
We can make it available. I think what we've done is to put the meeting presentation up, but I can absolutely share the slides. We can put the slides online as well if that's helpful.
Yes, when you get a chance to do both tonight's and Mondays, and if you could send me a link or where they're found, I'd appreciate it. And we have passed the link to the Sully District Council meeting, and we encourage any HOA that's not yet a member or is interested in hearing more about the SDCCA to join us. And we're opening the WebEx meeting, which you have the link to in the chat. Thank you so much. And again, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Clara. Thanks to all the staff and the proponents for making our time worthwhile.
Thank you all. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you all. So we appreciate the turnout and the attendance and the comments. The feedback is really helpful. All right. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Take care.